Hello, friends. Today's episode is with Bob Thompson. He's a mega stud, founder of Legion Transformation Centers and FitFX Labs. And we cover a lot of topics, both big picture stuff and small. We talk about knowing how and when to pivot in your life and in your business. We talk about the importance of taking risks and learning from mistakes, which he shares some really great examples of in his life. We also talk about his specific approach to nurturing leads in a way that maximizes sales. So that's very tactical. I will also mention his video feed is not amazing, but the audio is still great. So if you're watching this on YouTube or Instagram, hang in there. His video is pretty good. You can still see his amazing beard, which I think is worth the price of admission. And I'm still figuring out how to make the most out of our tech here as we've transitioned to video. So hang in there. But this is a fantastic conversation. I'm so grateful for Bob's time. So keep on listening, friends. Business for Unicorns podcast is for fitness business owners who want actionable strategies to grow their business, take amazing care of their clients, and build a life and business they truly love. I'm your host, Michael Keeler, co-founder of Mark Fisher Fitness, and through Business for Unicorns, I'm a coach and consultant to industry-leading fitness studios around the world. Let's get started. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Business for Unicorns podcast. Today, I'm really stoked to be sharing my conversation with mega stud Bob Thompson. I'm super excited to chat with him. I actually don't know Bob very well. We actually were just getting acquainted before we get to hit record right here today. And I'm excited because today's conversation is going to be me genuinely being curious about his world and his life. I've done a little cyber stalking about what's going on in Bob's world, but I'm excited to share our conversation. So without further ado, let me add Bob to the chat here. Hello, Bob. What's going on? How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Hey, Michael. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be on this and have this conversation today. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm stoked that you took the time to do this. I'm really excited to have this conversation. I know that you have so many skills and so much experience to share. So I just want to dive right in. And I feel like I have to start all of my conversations these days with, what have you learned about yourself and your businesses or business now in this last year of COVID? I mean, what are you learning about you and your relationship to business in this crazy roller coaster of a year?
Wow, that's a loaded and a super strong question. I've been all about the business of fitness since 2012 when I started my first location, and it's all I've done. And I will say, this last year, kind of like going remote for a lot of other people, was probably a big change for them. But for me, I've already been doing that for the last couple of years within my business, as I was mostly removed from the day to day. But I think the biggest thing for me that actually happened was really discovering what my strengths are, looking at the weaknesses that I had, and really trying to rectify that, but also looking forward to my future and where I want to go, as opposed to just doing what I need to do for the business. So kind of putting that priority and that shift there, which led to a lot of really big changes for me and my business and really how I operate within it today.
Yeah. I mean, great answer. I know it's a big question, and there's so many lessons that can be learned from a year like this. Can you just talk a little bit in detail about, how do you do that? How does Bob sit down and kind of take stock of like, what am I good at? What's working for me? What's not? How do I edit my life, my business in this moment? Because I know one of the things I hear you talk a lot about in your work when I've been cyber stalking you is this idea of pivoting, and that's kind of what you described, right? Which is you went through some process that to reflect on your strengths, your weaknesses, what's working. So how does Bob do that? What is your process, if you have one?
So there's definitely a process, and it's something that I've always done, and I've done it for a long time. I've always been, like, when I first opened my first location, was cognizant of the weaknesses that are involved, really the potential failures within the business. Because when I started, I had no idea about business. I was just a trainer, and that's what I was good at. I was good at delivering, personal training and semi-private training. But I had to pivot early on, because once I opened my second location, I almost ran out of money. So I was like, I'm probably going to be shutting down in 30 days if I don't make a change. So I had to take really fast action at that time just to make sure that the business didn't go under. And one of the earliest things that I learned, which is probably one of my strongest strengths and really has allowed me to grow the businesses, is that what I'm really good at is the marketing side of things, the sales side of things when it comes to my business, but also being that visionary role. So a couple years into business, I've always looked at having mentors, being around others that are much more successful than I am. So because they've already made the mistakes. So how can I take, even if they're in completely different industries, the mistakes that they've made and apply them into my business? And one of the things that I really discovered a couple years ago was that like the best seat that I fit in my businesses is that visionary role. Is that role that's going to be like, hey, I'm going to be leading the charge to where the business has to go, to have those tough conversations, but also to really guide it to what it's going to look like within the future. And adding into that role was like, hey, that's the marketing and the sales aspect. So kind of like answering your question would be twofold, is what's like my process, how to reflect on that is I take a look at what are the mistakes that I made, why did I make them, and how can I learn from them? It's cool to make mistakes. It's how we all learn, but are we repeating those mistakes? And then how can I overcome that and actually turn that into a benefit? Because I'm cool with making mistakes. I'm cool with failing as long as I do that really fast, learn from it, and then allow me to grow. And that's when I was growing from like 2 locations to 8 locations in a matter of a couple of years. The reason I did that, I was like, hey, here's this mistake, took action super fast, faster than everybody else would, and then just learned from it, applied it, and then didn't make that mistake again moving forward. But always had that grand plan of where I really, really wanted to go within the business. And that's kind of like how I sat within my company.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, Bob. And that, honestly, what you're sharing here, this attitude towards making mistakes, this attitude towards reframing those mistakes as learning opportunities, it's really a theme on this podcast. So many leaders and entrepreneurs I talk to seem to have been able to develop that attitude toward risk and failure and learning and self-improvement. How did you learn it? For folks who are listening who are like, yeah, I make mistakes and then I bury my head in the sand for 2 weeks afterwards, or I don't actually take risks, so I don't make mistakes. How did you develop this attitude of like, yeah, I'm going to make mistakes, and the point is I'm going to learn from them, not repeat them, and do better? So where does that lesson come from in your life?
I mean, that's tough. I think it was overall understanding where I wanted to go. Like, especially when I started the business and I realized, hey, like this is actually something that I can be pretty good at. And then how much attention I put on learning early on, because I didn't have any of the skill sets that were required of being a business owner or an entrepreneur or anything like that. Like I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. So I had to learn those skills. So I think probably it would be early on of constantly learning and then challenging my initial beliefs. But one thing that I definitely am, and I've always been this way, and actually I learned about this a lot this year as I've talked to other people, is I am a huge risk taker. I am not risk adverse at all. I will go all in and be like, it's either success or massive failure. And that really gets me excited. Like I'll put it all on the brink. And there's been several times where I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen if this doesn't work. Or like you're looking at the bank account and you're like, uh-oh, like this is not going to be a good situation. Like I know the last time I opened gyms, I opened 2 at the same time because I was opening one, it would be successful. We'd be cash flow positive within the first month, quickly turning a profit. So I wanted to challenge myself. I was like, how can I like step this up? So I was like, why don't I, because I've already learned the mistakes. I knew how to open one and constantly open another one. And I was like, why don't I open 2 at the same time? And using the cash from everything else, I'll just do that. And it was like, all right, that's a little bit difficult. Now I've doubled the staff that I have to do. I've had these 2 locations that I have to split my attention to. But that's definitely been something that I think it's a learned behavior. I've never, even as a kid, I was a troublemaker. So I always like to push people's buttons, see how much I could get away with. But I was always cognizant, and maybe the way that I was raised of, hey, like this is what you did and this is why. So I think since I like taking risks and seeing those big payoffs, I think that was part of it. But also because I always knew at the end of like the end goal that I was going towards. I could see that bigger picture. I could see that vision of where all these were fitting in line with. And I understood it. And I I gave myself permission to make those mistakes. Those mistakes didn't define me. It's like, that's what allowed me to actually take the steps forward. So I never would dwell on it. It was like, hey, you made a mistake. Cool. Boom, move on. And that's it. That's just how I always have been.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing a few things I think is really useful for our listeners who maybe aren't as big risk takers as you are, but I'm hearing a few things. One is be clear about your goals. You just said that, as long as you were clear on where you were heading and these mistakes were going to be, on a path to somewhere that was clear, then you felt like you had purpose. You were still driving in the same direction. I think that's useful. I think the other thing that you've said a few times was just that you're a continuous learner. And I think when you see yourself as a continuous learner, you can see, through these these learner glasses, this lens of everything I see, even my mistakes, is an opportunity for me to learn something. What is it? And I think that's useful for our listeners. So for people, who are watching and listening, who aren't, born with the same innate sense of like, F it all, I'll take risks all day long. At least be clear about your goals and try to see yourself as this learner. I think those are great tips, Bob. So let me ask you this. Switching gears. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, there's definitely people in how they, once I franchised my business, I saw that there was different mindsets that kind of go, like, people are definitely on the adverse side. They calculate everything. For me, I would calculate it. I would have to see what that outcome was, but I was driven by wanting to be the best at whatever I did. That was always something that motivated me, when I was younger, to then getting in business or anything like that. So I wanted to really, honestly, like, be better than other people that were in the space. So that motivated me, but knowing that, hey, there was just this little sliver and that was the most likely outcome as long as I drove everything through it. Like, I didn't focus on all the other potential risks. I didn't look at really all the stuff that went into it. Whereas a lot of people will kind of focus on that, which I think is similar to those people that get stuck within the process. They also prevent themselves from getting started. They see all these barriers or limitations except for the actual potential outcome that can happen for them. And that's something that I've never really ever dwelled on. And I've actually seen it as like, oh, cool, I just got to do these things to get this. Great, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense, Bob. And actually, that was a really great pivot to my next topic. It was very similar because one of the things I see you talk about a lot in your content is this idea of being really action focused and being on the offensive. I think it's a phrase I saw you use a few times. And you kind of just spoke to that. So if you don't mind, just kind of elaborate on, because I see this all the time, which is why I wanted to bring this up. In coaching fitness business owners at Business Unicorns, I talk to people literally every day who were absolutely, and sometimes they know this, they're in their own way. All they do is surround themselves with the sea of why they can't. All they see is the limitations and the obstacles. And to your point, it's hard for some people to see, okay, on the other side of these obstacles, on the other side of these limitations is some real possibility and real opportunity and real freedom, real financial freedom, really helping people. They just can't see the forest through the trees. And so just talk to me a little bit, when you get in that place and it's hard for you to see all the possibilities on the other side of an obstacle, how do you get there? And what's your advice to those folks?
Well, I think part of that is you do have to have a vision of where you want to be, where the people that are around you want to be, and you have to understand that you are in control of getting there. I mean, I think right now we faced in the beginning of lockdown, or when all these lockdowns first happened, and honestly, like, our industry was completely shifted. We had to have a vision that, like, we don't know what it's going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months at that time, or, a year later, what it's going to be, because it's going to be different. We just knew that we had to make changes because what we were doing right now wasn't going to work. We just couldn't do that. So especially early on, when I started talking about going the offensive, within the business landscape that we are now, is the current model wasn't going to work, at least in the short term. So let's take really fast action, because most people are going to be like, oh, they're not going to let me open. They're not going to do this, which, yeah, it does suck. Like, it's a total bummer, but there was nothing we could do about that at the time. The only thing that we could do is, like, I had 50, people that worked for me that I had to make sure that I took care of. I had to make sure that I was taking care of my future as well. And, like, everything was surrounding around the business and the gyms. And if we couldn't deliver our model in the way that it was then, it was, how do we quickly do exactly what we need to do to still service our mission to our people and deliver our product in a similar fashion? So that was like, hey, we can talk about how much we're maybe not happy about this or it stinks, or we just got to take action. And we still don't know what it's going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, or a year, but we have to do everything that we possibly can. And I think it's really important in business is like, there's certain times, like I started advertising on Facebook 2014 for the gyms, which was later than some other people, but much earlier than most people, and didn't know what I was doing. Still a little bit, it was much different back then, but we went, massively in on it, and it had a very, very big impact within the business. Whereas I bring that up because similar to a lot of other fit pros, like they didn't start advertising on Facebook till 3, 4, 5 years later. Some are just getting started now or something like that. And they would have kind of missed that early rush. We were able to kind of take that brand, take those markets, really take over the market share because we were fast and we took quick action and we went on the offensive and we kind of cornered that. It's the same thing within business. You have the control to change whatever the outcome is going to be. It's going to be the result of the actions that you take. You can dwell on it. You can get stuck in the process, but you're going to be in the same exact spot, if not worse, than you were by doing nothing. At least start moving forward, and then just doing something is going to allow you, especially in our space, to keep going. So that, I guess that's like just the kind of the tough thing is, maybe it's tough if you're just you, but when you have all these people that work for you and they're looking for your guiding kind of light and response. And like, that was one of the things that I knew early on, like, hey, this is where we have to go. And then I've made a ton more changes throughout kind of lockdown and, whether it be the franchisees or licensees and stuff like that, of where I see the future of our industry and the business going, but also the future of me within the business had to make changes in order to continue moving forward and for the business to stay in the offense.
Yeah. I think that's great, Bob. I heard a few things in there I think are really useful, for our listeners. All of it, but in particular, you went back to the idea of having a clear vision for yourself about where you're going, and I think you even added on there a vision of where everyone else wants to go around you. And if you're working on a big team, that's really important to make sure you're aligned on where you're heading next. I think that's huge. I think that, what you described repeatedly is this kind of just bias towards action, is that you can be stuck, but you're going to be in a worse off position for overthinking it or, being delayed. And there's so many positives to being first to market. There's so many positives to being ahead of the curve in your market. And so I think, sometimes just messy, imperfect, fast action, just like the ready, fire, aim approach can go really take you a long way when you just kind of get out of your own way. And because the thing I've learned in my own experience is that I actually don't learn about what works and doesn't work by thinking about it. I don't learn about what works and doesn't work by talking to other people about it, even to an extent. I learn by trying shit. I learn by taking all the things I've read and seen and heard and feel and thought and try it. And then I get that feedback that helps, grow my learning exponentially. And so I think you're saying much of the same thing. I think that's been true for me as well.
I agree. And I think that's exactly it. Like, the imperfect action is what's going to give you the result. And I would say I thrive a little bit under chaos a little bit. So when if everything, it's like, hey, this is where we need to go. I don't know exactly how we're going to get there, but we're going to do all these things. And you kind of like mess it up a little bit. That's how you really learn. That's how you really figure out, hey, this is what we need. This is what we don't need. Oops, should never have done that.
Yeah.
But just like you, it's really going into it is how I learn it. Like, I could hear from other people, but until I actually get almost in the trenches on the actual action that's needed, am I truly going to understand it?
Well, I think that there's something really, really wise about that I think all organizations need some like healthy tension, some healthy chaos, because in that chaos or in that tension or in that pressure is where you learn what parts of the business are most resilient and where the cracks are. In that chaos, you learn what to keep because this is really essential and got us through the storm. And that was totally superfluous. Yeah, I don't know that word. And so I think that's useful. I think there's a lot of wisdom there. Yeah. Let me switch gears and ask you this, because I know that one of your strong suits is, marketing and sales, and our listeners would totally kill me if I don't spend some time picking your brain around what's working right now. In fact, I asked Mark Fisher before this, like, hey, I'm talking to Bob today. Anything you want me to ask him? He was like, you have to ask him marketing sales. You have to ask him what's he see that's working right now. So Mark and our listeners, don't kill me. I'll just ask the question straight up. What's working right now? What in terms of marketing and selling is helping generate leads and get people in the door in these COVID times?
Yeah. So that was something that we switched a lot of gears towards doing. Was one, we're still, before I kind of go into the avenues of where you should be marketing, because I think that is changing for a lot of gyms. But it's in the beginning of marketing, like the most important thing in all of our marketing, if you need to generate leads, is your offer. And I think that's where most gyms and trainers, like when it comes to sales or marketing, are absolutely atrocious at, is their offer just is not appealing. Nobody actually wants to take you up on this offer. And I was actually thinking about that before this call, because I know that like you do a lot of coaching, and I did some coaching and stuff with gym owners, and we kind of, or some gym owners I think struggle significantly, forget to put themselves in the shoes of their clients or their prospective clients, because they love working out. It's changed their life. They're going to do it regardless. Like they're going to wake up or they're going to stay up late. They're going to do all that stuff. And they don't mind it. It's become part of their habits. Whereas most of our prospects and most of our clients, at least early on, don't want to do this. They don't want to work out. They don't want to eat right. They don't want to do any of that stuff. And I think a lot of gym owners kind of forget that. And they go, I just want to have those people that are ready to go, that are super serious. It's like, hey, that freaking person doesn't exist, or it's 1 in 100. Good luck building a business off of that. So first off, we have to understand who our actual client is, who our avatar is, and then create an offer that is appealing to them. Because when you have a strong offer, it doesn't matter where you're delivering it, whether it be Facebook, Google, or any of that stuff, they're going to take you up on it. But if your ads aren't working or any of that, you're not getting good qualified leads, it's because that's just not present, or what you have sucks. And that was one of the things early on. Like I remember working with a client, and they weren't getting like any leads whatsoever. I think they were getting like $70, $100 leads on Facebook. And then we tweaked some stuff, and they wanted to tweak some stuff, and it was like, just do this. And they're like, oh, it's not gonna work. And the next thing you know, they're getting $5 leads in their market. Even though they were already advertising on it, the biggest thing was the switch from the offer and then the copy. So we're still finding that Facebook works, although Facebook is really cracking down as far as marketing. They are cracking down. We do our ads and stuff a lot differently in how we do it, especially on the back end. But Facebook still works. YouTube is also working really well. And I was actually telling Mike the other day, like, we're looking into TikTok. TikTok's not quite ready for local marketing.
Yeah.
But if you have a good virtual program, you're an online trainer or anything like that, it is going to be a really good option for them. So we're going to start testing even more in there and really branching out. But the other thing that when it comes to marketing and sales is, this isn't just gym owners. This is every business owner. They get a lead and they think that lead should pick up the phone and buy right now. The most important thing when it comes to marketing or your sales is the nurture of that prospect. It's understanding if you have 100 leads, 10, 20% of those leads, they're never going to sign up. They just got in, maybe they clicked on it accidentally or whatever, they're not going to do anything. Like they already got their pleasure, their gratification just by acting as if they were going to sign up. 10% of those people ready to go off the bat. Like they're rocking. They already know that this is a solution they need. It's that rest of that pile, that 70%, that 60% of those leads who are going to sign up within like 30, 60, 90 days. And that's where the real magic in the marketing comes from, is that nurture process that's in place to get those prospects to finally sign up for your program. And it doesn't matter where they're really coming in from, is having that in place. It's the gyms and those gym owners or those sales reps that actually do that follow-up process are the ones that are having success. And that can trump a market that's not pulling well or anything like that, is that actual follow-up that's going in. But as far as that, like, there's some strong offers that are working. Facebook's still working, even if it is a little bit more difficult. I think they have a lot of other added pressure going on to them. So they're like banning accounts left and right, which you can get back. But YouTube's working well. And then I do think for fitness, TikTok's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was so much great information, Bob, and friends at home. I hope you're writing some down what Bob was sharing here. Actually, I even have my are you writing this down graphic that I like to share, because he really laid out kind of 4 really specific things that I think everyone should be doing all the time. So one, I'll say the things I heard and then correct me if I missed something. But I heard you say, 1, put yourself in your avatar's shoes, like know who you're serving and remember what it's like to be them. Remember what it's like to not want to work out, not want to eat well, and not want to, respond to emails, and not want to not care as much about your gym as you do. Remember what it's like. So that's the first thing is be in the shoes of your avatar if you can. Number 2 is have a great offer. And I'm going to circle back to that because I want to dig a little deeper there. Have a great offer. You can turn around your marketing by tweaking the offer and having something your clients really actually want. Number 3, the third thing I heard you say was be in the right channels. Right. So I think, you said Facebook's still working, but people should also look at YouTube. TikTok's maybe coming down the lane. And depending on your market, there might be others that really resonate with your audience. And the 4th thing I heard you say, and this has been so true for us as well, which is that all of this is really about the follow-up and the nurture. That it's not just enough to send someone 1 email or 1 text or 1 phone call. It is about the relentless follow-up every day. And you're right, everyone that I'm talking to that's having any success at all has all 4 of those things. They care about their avatar. They know what it's like to be in their shoes. And because of that, they give them an offer they care about. They put those offers in the right places and they follow up like a crazy person. Did I miss anything? Or those seem to be the big ones?
No, that's 100% it. And I think that when you can understand that, and that's when you're actually going to start. It doesn't matter if you get 100 leads in your market in a month or if you get 1,000 leads in your market in a month. You will be able to start signing up new clients, because that's the other thing. We talked a little bit on marketing, but like, people are signing up, whether your doors are shut or not. We're doing a ton of phone sales now, as opposed to in-person sales, and having massive success. Phone sales is a different kind of sale than in-person sales. So you have to understand that. You can't be sloppy. A lot of people are going to be sloppy in person. And so you have to really dial that in. However, like, people are signing up, whether your state's shut down or not, and you are a traditional brick and mortar, you can get them to sign up, but you have to have all those other pieces in play to actually make that part happen.
Yeah. Let me ask you, we can just, maybe with our remaining time, I want to dig deeper into these areas that I know you have more to say.
Yep.
And 1 is, great offers, and 2 are sales scripts. So when you think about what makes a great offer, do you have any formula? Do you have anything, any like anatomy of a great offer that you can give advice about? So how do you know that you found one? Obviously it works. So what else?
Yeah. So I think you have to, a great offer stands the test of time. And I think when it comes to fitness, and I think this is kind of business universal, because you got to have a specific result in a specific time frame. People know they have to work out. They know they have to eat right. And they also know they have to do it for life, but they don't want to do that. So we have to meet them where they are. We have to give them a reason to actually want to come and join. So you have to figure out, who is my client and what is the goal that they want to have? Now, how can I give them that initial goal in a short period of time? And generally, you can kind of test time periods and stuff of that nature. That is actually going to get them excited to want to do this, to maybe even have them raise their eyebrow and go, this isn't possible. What's going on here? Elicit their curiosity. I actually just gave a framework that I like from Kevin Harrington, who's was on the Shark Tank. And I saw him put this up, and he's also a direct response marketer. And I love the framework that he uses for ads, which is tease, please, seize. And so I think when you have a really good offer, it's the same thing. You want to tease them, like, here's this result you're going to get in this short period of time. And then you're going to please them by they're going to raise their eyebrow. They're going to be like, I don't know, this doesn't sound like it's going to work. You're going to please them of what they're going to get, how they're going to get it, and actually how you're going to get the result. So now it's like, oh, this is actually going to work. This isn't BS. And then you got to seize them. You got to get their information. You either send them into, if you're really good at marketing, sale or copy and stuff like that, you can send them to a sales page, or what's traditionally works within our space is getting them onto a call with a rep, and following that framework. But I think that it's been shown time and time and time again that the best offer is a specific result in a specific period of time that can also overcome maybe their fear that takes them out of it, which is why a lot of times like free offers and stuff have traditionally worked. We're not really running a lot of free offers at all at this time. I will say the one offer I absolutely hate, though. I think like the worst offer is like a free week. I think it used to work years and years ago.
Yeah.
But so you have to make that a lot better, but specific result, specific period of time. And then maybe sweeten the deal for them too. Like making it free or creating a guarantee to take the risk out of it for them.
Yeah. I love that. There's so many great things. I hope you all were taking notes because there's lots of great things. And I love that that phrase, tease, please, seize. I think that's a great one too. I think, so having specific offers, specific period of time, that also addresses some of their objections that are coming down the pike, and helps them get quick results. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. So what about sales scripts? This is another area where I see people struggle to get it right. One, I see people just refuse to have any scripts at all because they're like, well, you can't make me read a script. I'm not going to be a robot. I don't want to just say the same things. People won't think I'm authentic. And then I see some people who maybe overuse scripts so that they actually do become all those things. They do become robotic and inauthentic. So how do you thread the needle here?
So I think scripts are fantastic because we're making assumptions that our team is going to do everything correct. Like you wouldn't have somebody go into Mark Fisher Fitness and then just let them do whatever the hell they wanted to. You have a system in place of how a session is going to start, what it's going to look like, maybe even the introductions they're going to have, how that class works. The programming is probably done from you guys at the top level. And then at the end, you have a systemized of how they're going to leave and the steps you're going to have. So you have an amazing customer experience. You have amazing product or service that's delivered. Same thing has to be done when it comes to your sales message because shortcuts are going to be had. People don't realize like when they start skipping things or trying to speed stuff up, especially when it comes to phone sales. So I think that it's extremely important to have a framework in place that people can follow along so they understand of what the objective is from when they get that person on the phone to really making sure that you close them. And we've noticed, and so I'll skip ahead a little bit, or I'll save that for a little bit later, but then also having that phone script. Here it is, word for word. Eventually, they can start going off of that script to add it, or they should have some knowledge, but they got to get them back onto the script. They got to get them back onto really what the objective of that call is. You have to own that call. You have to own that conversation. And it's without a script or a framework, either stuff gets missed or the prospect controls it. And then you don't get that person to sign up. And if you don't get that person to sign up, you don't change their life, you don't help them, and then you don't help yourself or your business. So I think that people that don't like to have scripts are in denial, that they don't understand how effective they are, or maybe it's just them and they haven't ever had to develop a team yet.
Yeah.
You need to have that for the team. But you're going to structure, you're going to systemize, you're going to create these SOPs for almost every other thing in your business, but you're not going to do it for sales. It blows my mind. And we've seen, because even when you have those scripts, people aren't going to use them.
Of course.
So we've even seen that. We've had our sales rep use them, and in person, our closing ratio was 75% or higher. And that's when we knew they were following our systems, they were following our stuff. Then when we got them on the phone, we started closing, our barrier minimum is 50%. We want to be able to sign up at least 50% of the people that we talk to. And then we noticed our good sales reps, when they were following the sales script, were closing upwards of 70% on the phone during some weeks. So we want to make sure they're doing that. And then anytime they started dipping below, we would go listen to the calls. We'd find they weren't using the script. They weren't doing any of that stuff. They were skipping steps. And as a result, they weren't signing people up because they were leaving questions and stuff unanswered. So I think it just makes it easy. It takes any sort of uncertainty and it takes any of the human element to a degree out of it, which I guess some people might be like, oh, we want to have the human element, but people are going to make mistakes. It's how humans are.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I can guarantee that when somebody comes into my facility, they're going to get the exact same experience at any of the locations. Same thing. I want to make sure that they are because customer experience starts from that initial call. I believe that somebody's already making the decision, even when they're coming into a short-term program, whether they're going to continue with you or not. And it comes from that initial conversation. And then what actually happens right afterwards? Are they making that conscious decision? Like, I'm going to refer a ton of people and I'm going to stay. Like, they're making that decision on that sales meeting, even if they've told you or not. So I think having those steps in place will be there. And I think that if you don't have a sales script, you're being lazy. Bottom line.
You said it, Bob. You said it. I think it's great for all listeners, and just start with something. Start with writing down what you do. Start with, if you record yourself, practice with someone. If you think you're good at it, practice with someone, record it, write that down as a script. It doesn't have to be complicated, but I think, as Bob said so wonderfully, there's so much at stake. It's their first impression. It's, building consistency throughout the experience. It's, making sure that if the script isn't working, you can change it, but if you don't have a script, you don't know what to change. And so there's so much at stake here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, big time. And it's, you owe it to the client, you owe it to yourself and your team to make sure that they're prepared enough. And I know, and I've been doing sales a while. Obviously I'm a talker. So I like to have a script because it keeps me on track. It makes sure that I don't skip stuff or go over. And even when I'm done sales calls, I'll have my script right next to me to go along with. And, again, you're also humans. You're going to have bad days. Mm-hmm. On the script, you can get rid of those bad days. It's not going to come into play.
Yeah. Good for you. Yeah, I think that's awesome. All right. Well, sadly, I'm going to switch gears to start to wrap it up, but I want to get to our final 5 questions. And I also want to ask you, because you've made some big changes to your life and your businesses this year. And so I wanted to give you a chance to talk about, I think, we were talking before we hit record earlier, and you now have a single location of Legion in Pennsylvania and got rid of everything else. Which is, now that we know that you're a big risk taker, makes sense. But just talk me through, what made you decide to kind of to right size your life? I'll call it right size your life and your business in 2020. Where did this decision come from?
Yeah, and I think that so for those that don't know, I'll kind of give a little backstory. I had 8 locations that I owned, and then I had a little over 10 franchisees that were open as well. Mm. So we still have, and I always say we as Legion, stuff like that. We still have corporate locations, as we call them, and then we'd have the franchise locations. Well, now I only own 1 location. So instead of having 8 and all that stuff, I only own 1. And the rest are actually, so I sold them to my employees, which is really exciting. Because I had people that had worked with me for a long time, treated it as their own, and now literally it's their own, and their future is now going to be forever different. So we still have a ton of locations in the company. I just don't own the majority of them anymore, which is nice because, we were talking kind of before this conversation, I opened, didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at this. And I wanted to get really good at it. And I went from 2 locations to 8 locations in a matter of years. Took essentially a $20,000 investment and turned it over to $20 million in just a couple year time frame. And then I decided to franchise that business. And once I franchised, started awarding, getting them open. But one of the things that I was super cognizant of was I was not good at operating 8 locations and also operating a franchise. And I was told by other franchisors that, hey, you got to pick one or the other. And then I noticed, especially as the business changed, and really what my desires were, was that I no longer really wanted to operate gyms. It wasn't my passion anymore. It wasn't getting in there, making all these changes and doing all that stuff. But I had people that were really passionate about that. And because my passion wasn't as much there for making sure that I was absolutely crushing it at a location level, it was causing the locations to suffer to a degree. So I knew for the best thing for myself as well as the business was, let me concentrate on just that one thing. Because concentrating on both, it wasn't having the success that I would have liked. So I decided to go all in on just the one. Hey, I'm going to focus on the licensees and the franchisees to make sure that they're having success, coaching them to success, and then they're absolutely going to crush it at that location level. But I also wanted to not live on the Northeast anymore. And I moved out to Montana, which is where this is being filmed from, because I fell in love with it. I also own a supplement company, and they're manufactured out of Montana. And that's when I was like, I need to move out here. So it's really difficult to live across the country when I own a ton of locations. So that was kind of the progression for me was, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. There's people that I think are going to be actually better for the next stage of the business for it. And then I had a couple other things that I was a little bit, I guess, more passionate about that I wanted to put my energy towards. And that's where I took those steps to do that.
Yeah. Good for you, Bob. I mean, it takes a lot of guts. I mean, I talk to a lot of folks who, who hang on to their businesses just out of some sense of obligation, right? And it hurts them and it hurts their business, and we all know what the intimate relationship, entrepreneurs can have with businesses they start. They're like our children in many cases. I've never had children, so that's probably an offensive analogy, but that's the way I think of it. So it's fun. But, they're at the very least like our little puppies, that we take care of. And sometimes we can hang on too long. And so the fact that you were able to self-reflect and say, you know what? I'm just not in this the same way anymore. This doesn't light me up the way it did before. And there's other things that are lighting me up, and I'm going to honor that feeling and go for it. And then I love this decision you made to sell it to your employees. Can you just talk a little bit more about how you decided to sell to your employees and what that process was like, whatever you can talk about?
Yeah. So, there's when I did that, one, it was a fast decision. When I kind of get something in my mind, I take pretty quick action. Otherwise, it just like festers on me and it's all I can think about. And I was taking a look at like, hey, where does this company need to go? What are the changes that need to be had? And how can I make sure that like everybody's taken care of? And I've been really fortunate where I've had people over the years that like they just took so much ownership of the business, even when they didn't own it. They would work long hours when they didn't have to. They would come in, they would cover, like they just have always been involved. And I was trying to think of what is the next best step. I'm still involved. So I still own the parent company. So I want to make sure that it has success. So I wanted to make sure that it was put in the right hands of people that understand it, that know where it's come from, that we could have the right conversations for where it needs to go. But as you and I probably know, like the most important thing in a brick and mortar gym is location leadership. Like that's what matters most, is you gotta have really strong leadership at a location level. And I wanted to put those people that were kind of already in place. And in fact, I kind of already had those people doing that. So that's why the decision to sell it to employees was, hey, I can go and try and bring some people that are outside of the company involved in it, and really go over those suitors. But one, I wanted to move on. I wanted to go into and start focusing on other stuff. And two, I wanted to make sure that it would only continue to grow. And it was given to those people, not given, but like those people that were going to be taking over were going to understand where it's come from, the history that it has, and also what needs to be done. And also that probably was one of my most gratifying things that I've ever done in business, was to see these people that have come in that have given up so much of their time in their life to make something that they didn't own success, to now freaking own it. And knowing that like they're literally coming into a situation that can change their life. Like that was probably one of the most rewarding things. And when that decision was made, like, hey, this is going to be the best option, it was like a no-brainer.
Yeah. Amazing. Congrats to you, my friend. It's pretty fantastic to make a move like that and feel so great about it. And congrats to your former employees, now kind of co-owners who are on that journey with you. It's got to be exciting for them as well. And I hope listeners and viewers are paying attention to that that idea that, even as entrepreneurs, you gotta keep growing and follow your bliss, and if not, often, we as owners become the bottlenecks to our own business. If your heart's not in it, you're not given 110%, do yourself and your business a favor and move on and give it to someone who is going to give it 120%. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that, Bob. That's really important. I want to be conscious of your time, and I want to start wrapping up with our final 5 questions. So here are our final 5 questions. These are 5 questions I ask everyone. Sometimes they vary, but they mainly are the very similar. And so 5 questions. These are meant to be rapid fire, but feel free to take your time if there's one you want to linger on. So question number 1, Bob, is what's one thing that you love about being a gym owner?
The immediate answer was literally changing people's lives. And that has been the foundation and the crux of what allowed the businesses to continue to grow. Is like we were having people come in that were literally transforming their lives. And that has always been, probably what I've loved about the business the most is the actual impact that it's given people.
Yeah, great answer. Love it. Number 2, what is the coolest thing you've ever done for a client? The coolest thing you've ever done for a client?
I'll share a story of when I first started, because I think her story is also pretty incredible. Is I had someone who wanted to come in on one of the front end programs who was actually kind of leaving a very bad relationship, an abusive relationship, and not in a good space. So essentially just brought her in the community, and then with a free challenge, free membership, and all that stuff. And then she's actually been working in the company for over 5 years now. So I think seeing that person being able to have an outlet where they came from something pretty bad to having something that's been a positive kind of part of their life has probably been my favorite aspect of it.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, we all know that for many people, working on your fitness and your nutrition can be a gateway to all kinds of personal development and personal improvement in all areas of your life. So it's great we can play that small or large part in making change. Good for you. Cool. Question number 3. When someone on your team, a peer, a colleague, or someone that works for you, when someone on your team does this, it makes you super happy. What is that thing?
Just takes ownership. I don't know if that's that's immediately what came to me is I've always given a little bit more autonomy in the roles of what they're supposed to do. And I want them to own it, the good and the bad, and then just get shit done. Like that's what I think, like, hey, you want to make me happy, go above and beyond with what you're doing. Mm-hmm. We stole from Disney +1, so create a +1 experience. I think we also stole it from you guys too. Was make sure you go above and beyond, and that's what I love when I hear that they're just taking ownership of what they have to do and their role and everything like that, and they just go above and beyond and do it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, for sure. It's a good one. Number 4. Question number 4 is, we kind of talked about this one a little bit earlier, but if you had to pick one, what is your most reliable strategy for generating leads? If you had to go back to this thing time and time again, you need to generate leads tomorrow, what is the thing you return to?
If I had to generate leads tomorrow, it's putting up an irresistible offer on Facebook, spending a shit ton of money behind it, and letting those leads pour in, and then put them into our nurture system and get them to sign up.
Yeah, great. And last one, question number 5 is, what is the one thing gym owners can start doing better tomorrow? In your opinion, this is the one thing most people are just not doing good enough, and they can start doing this better tomorrow.
They need to get out of their own way. I think that's the biggest thing is that they get it. They don't take action fast enough, and they get stuck in doing what they want to do and not what their business needs. And this is it can be a tough lesson to learn. So when I first started my business, obviously I love to work out. That's why I got into it. I had to earn my workouts. Just because I owned a gym doesn't mean I could work out whenever the hell I wanted to. I had a bunch I had to go get out of my car and knock on all local businesses. I had to make a ton of calls. I had to send a ton of cold emails, and I had to do a bunch of that on top of training my clients. And then I could work out. Whereas I don't think enough people do that. I don't think enough gym owners are doing the things that are necessary within their business when it comes to marketing and when it comes to sales. Instead, they're focusing on the things that they like doing and neglect the things that their business needs. That could be having tough conversations as well and getting rid of, most, you probably noticed that like most gym owners have ridiculous expenses for some odd reason, with a payroll that's too high or something like that. And then they don't focus their energy on the stuff that they need to do. And I think that's the biggest thing, is get over a little bit of our own ego and do that really boring stuff every single day. Generating leads, calling those leads, signing them up, and grow your business.
Yeah. Yeah, great answer, Bob. That's exactly it. I concur. That's every day I'm talking to folks who are working themselves to the bone and exhausted and often burned out, and they're burning out on all the wrong things. They're doing all the things they want to do, or frankly, some things they think they should be doing, but they're still not the things that are most important that their business is screaming for, like generating leads or converting those leads. And so, yeah, great. That's a great answer. I love it. Cool. So for our listeners and viewers, how do people keep in touch with you? If they want more Bob Thompson, where do they go to find for more you?
So they can go to Instagram at I am Bob Thompson, or find me on Facebook at Bob Thompson. That was one of the things that I've also kind of stopped doing, is I have not been as active on social media as I probably should be. But they can find me on there, on Instagram or Facebook.
Amazing. Anything else you're working on that's coming up for you, you want to tell people about, or any place where you want to direct people's attention in this moment?
Yeah, I guess there's two things. I'm a big believer in, especially gym owners, having multiple revenue streams. From our front end offers to our memberships and our EFT, and then also supplements. So I do believe that most gym owners are leaving anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 on the table every single month by not having a high quality supplement that their clients are actually buying, that they can actually get behind. So I do have a company, FitFX Labs, that is a full line of extremely high quality supplements just for gym owners that they can throw in and make sure their clients are actually getting quality supplements that are actually going to help them get to their goals. And then, of course, I also do marketing and lead nurture for gym owners through Fit Pro Syndicate. They're looking for somebody to actually run their ads, then put them into our system where they're actually going to get all their leads to actually book appointments and then show up. We handle all of the nurture for them and also the front end lead gen. They can also reach out, and that's at Fit Pro Syndicate. So they can just shoot me a message for either one of those.
Amazing. That's great, Bob. We'll include links to all that in the show notes below. But thank you so much for your time, dude. We did great. We're just under an hour, so we're crushing things. and I really appreciate your time and your expertise and your energy and your passion for this. I mean, it's clear that you're doing this work because you give a crap, and it shows. So thank you for sharing with us today. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you having me on here. As you know, that the one of what I consider to be the pinnacles when it comes to fitness is Mark Fisher Fitness. What you guys have done at that facility is amazing. And I've used it for tons of lessons with my team. So it's been an honor to finally be able to have a conversation with one of the persons behind that. And I love what you're doing also, helping coach gym owners, because it's very much needed within our industry. So it's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Stay well, my friend. Hey friends, before you go, just one more thing. If you enjoy this podcast, you get value out of it, you enjoy listening, please share this podcast, comment below. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Please share it with friends and family. We don't spend any money on marketing or advertising. And so the only way people find out about this podcast is from you. So please do everything you can to share it with friends and fellow colleagues in the fitness industry. We love making it, and we want to keep doing it for a long, long time. So I appreciate your support. Go have a kick-ass day. Bye.